Everybody, and welcome back to another Game News Roundup, where this is being streamed live, twitch.tv/TrunksWD if you want to catch these live. We've got some people in chat. Say hi to YouTube, or say hi to VGChartz if this ends up being up on VGChartz as well, where we go over the latest gaming news, sales figures, and Activision Blizzard stuff. And yeah, I am probably as sick about hearing about that deal as you guys, but you know, it is what it is. One, they get good views. Two, it's a big thing in gaming, but it feels like there's something every week. At this point, I want the deal to either be approved or blocked at this point, and just kind of almost move on. But, you know, something going on every week, and we've got a lot to talk about with that, but we'll wait until the second half of this. So we're going to start right here with the rumor, labeled as a rumor specifically. PlayStation 5 Pro is in development, kind of like we had the PS4 Pro last generation, or the Xbox One X last generation, more powerful console. I would say that the Nintendo Switch OLED, but it's pretty much the same system, just with an OLED screen and a couple other minor changes. But yeah, rumor. PlayStation is rumored to be developing a PS5 Pro with a tentative release window of late 2024, according to sources who spoke with Insider Gaming's Tom Henderson. Details on this rumor PS5 Pro are light, as the sources didn't provide details on the specs. However, you would expect kind of like the PS4 Pro to have slightly bumped up specs from the current PS5 with the PS5 Pro. And Insider Gaming, also in their report, they also believe the next generation PlayStation, the PS6, won't launch until at least 2028, which is 8 years from the launch of the PS5, which, you know, that's a year longer than the gap between the PS4 and the PS5, and I think even the PS3 and the PS4. Generally, it's been like 7 years or so between launches of generations for the next-gen console. And then obviously last gen we did have the mid-gen upgrade with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. Now, what do y'all think of a PS5 Pro? I mean, it feels like this generation, I realize it's been 2 years and like 5 months since the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S launched at this point. It almost feels too early for a Pro. I mean, maybe we'll see a slim model or something. I don't know. But it just feels like how many games are still coming out for the PS4 or the Xbox One? I think less so the Xbox One at this point. I think even like some games are coming out to last gen. It's only coming to PS4 last gen, and some are skipping Xbox One. The Xbox One being less powerful than the PS4. But we're just starting to see now some more exclusives for the current generation consoles. There are a lot of the big previous titles. God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, I think Gran Turismo 7, was it? We're on the PS5 and PS4, Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5. We're on Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One and PC. But it feels like we're not seeing a ton of exclusives for, so far, for the current gen. I feel like this is like the year we're really going to start seeing major exclusives. Whether it's Starfield on the Xbox, or Final Fantasy 16, or Spider-Man 2 on PS5, being next-gen exclusives. As well as PC, whether it's day one with Starfield or in the future with Final Fantasy 16. But also, there's also been previously reported that Sony is working on a redesign of the standard PS5 that comes with a detachable disc drive. So it'll be one SKU, one will pretty much be one SKU, just you either have a disc drive built in, which can be removed, or you buy it without the disc drive, and then you can get the disc drive later that can be added on. Which is rumored to be coming out later this year, so if it is true, we'll probably hear about it sometime this summer, would be my guess, before, you know, with a couple months before it comes out, is my guess. And it might be also a sort of a slim model. I'm not sure how much smaller that you can make it with the tech inside of the current consoles, but we'll see if this ends up being true, because the PS4 Slim did launch 3 years after the PS4, and this holiday would be 3 years after the PS5 launched. Not much yet on updated Xbox Series X or S consoles. It's been mainly PS5 Pro or redesigned PS5 or PS5 Slim it could be. But again, this is all rumored. We'll find out in the future what's happening. But moving on. Epic Games! The Federal Trade Commission in the U.S. has finalized its order to Epic Games to pay $245 million back to consumers over unwanted purchases. Epic also has to pay a $275 million penalty over violations of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act rule. That is over $500 million that Epic has to pay, either back to consumers or as a penalty. So in December 2022, the FTC stated Epic violated the COPPA, and it deployed design tricks known as dark patterns to dupe millions of players into making unintentional purchases. And the FTC in another complaint also said Epic used a way to trick players of all ages into making unwanted purchases, which led children to amass unauthorized charges without parental involvement. Epic ignored over 1 million user complaints over being wrongfully charged, according to the FTC. Epic also allegedly locked accounts of players who disputed unauthorized charges with their credit card companies. This means they were blocked from using any content they had already purchased themselves. And also that is no longer allowed. I do believe we talked about this back in December, but the thing has been finalized by the FTC, so Epic now has to pay over $500 million. Whether it's $245 million to consumers specifically to pay back for unwanted purchases, or $275 million penalty to the FTC. Or I guess you'd say the U.S. government. So yeah, that's a big, big bill. Although, think about the billions of dollars that Epic has made from Fortnite. So, The Last of Us TV series has been a huge success for Naughty Dog and HBO, and well, for fans, and I do plan on watching it. I have not watched it yet. No spoilers. It's definitely on my list to play. I just don't have HBO Max at the moment. But I do plan on getting HBO Max to, well, probably for a month, and to watch Last of Us and the Game of Thrones prequel. I'm not having a brain fart of what it was called, but you know that Game of Thrones prequel that came out earlier this year, last year? Might have been last year at this point. But yeah, The Last of Us HBO TV series continues to be a hit for HBO and Naughty Dog, with the series finale setting a series record with 8.2 million viewers on its premiere night. And this, you also have to remember, what makes it more impressive, the Oscars also were on at the exact same time as its premiere night, which I'm sure there's some overlap of people who want to watch the Oscars or watch The Last of Us TV series. But yeah, the amount of viewers for the series finale during its premiere night was 75% higher than the debut episode. And the average audience for the first 6 episodes is now nearing a total of 30.3 million viewers across all platforms, with episode 1 nearing 40 million viewers. And yeah, this is the number of viewers on its premiere night. You go 4.7 million to 5.7 to 6.4 to 7.5, though episode 5 did release 2 nights early on HBO Max and streaming services. I think, is this Sky TV or something that's available in the UK? If anyone, Dave, anyone else from the UK, feel free to let me know. Which is why you see 11.6 million, and it's from February 10th to the 12th. The reason it didn't premiere at its usual time was the Super Bowl. Super Bowl was enough to bump it out to be available a couple days early on streaming services. But otherwise, other than excluding that episode 5, you will see the number of viewers more or less increase. 7.8 million for episode 6, though episode 7 did see a tiny increase to 7.7 million, and then episode 8, 8.1 million, and the finale 8.2 million on March 12th on its premiere night. And yeah, a lot of people watching it, people are enjoying it. I think it's generally followed the correct story from the game. But also about The Last of Us. Last of Us co-creator Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, in an interview with GQ, revealed The Last of Us Part 2, the sequel to Last of Us, is going to be split into more than one season in the TV series. No way, said Mazin when asked if the second season would encompass the entire second game. And then Druckmann added, it's more than one season. Is it 2 seasons? Is it 3 seasons? 4 seasons? I don't know. Probably 2 or maybe even 3. Depends. Maybe they'll add some extra story as well. But yeah, the 2 were asked if it would be 2 or 3 seasons. And Mazin stated, you have noted correctly that we will not say how many, but more than 1 is factually correct. Yeah, Druckmann, going on the process going into the second season, says he finds the process is easier. There's more trust. There's more of a shorthand. I know that I'm working with my friend. That even when we have some very strong disagreements, it's always light. I've been in so many situations where if you disagree with someone, it feels like life or death. The process here is really a joy. yeah, everyone has differing opinions, disagreements, but it's not to get too heated with your disagreements. It's to stay calm. Feel free to, you know, debate and figure things out, but don't go overboard. I see it enough in the in certain places. And Twitter being the main one. Social media. Anyways, Mason added, I wouldn't say that there were any disagreements. It wasn't like for 3 weeks I was like, Ellie should be a boy. And he was like, what? No. These things are always tiny. Should she say this word or this word? All the subtleties are where Neil and I think invest a lot of our effort and attention because that's where we find beauty. They're also asked about how the second game relies on perspective shifts that are unique in video games and how they would be adapted into the HBO TV series. I think we know what we're doing on this one. I'm not saying that in a snarky way. I'm saying that in a hopeful way. There are going to be things that are going to be different for the TV series for seasons, I guess, 2 and 3, based off of the second game. And there are things that are going to be identical. There are things that are going to be added and enriched. There are some things that are going to be flipped. Our goal remains exactly what it was for the first season, which is to deliver a show that makes fans happy. We've got an incredible returning cast. It's a daunting task, but Jesus, so was the first season. You can't make everyone happy, but we've made a lot of people happy, and that's our intention to do it again. So if you're worried, second season or second game will be more than one season. So seasons at least 2 and 3 will be based off of the second game. And I know Last of Us Part 2 had a controversial, I think was it ending? Or some part of it was controversial. I haven't played it yet. But yeah. Let's see. Nintendo on Zelda Tears of the Kingdom $70 price, saying that the game has a deeply immersive experience. Nintendo America President Doug Bowser, in an interview with the Associated Press, was asked about the $70 price tag for Tears of the Kingdom, and he thinks fans will find the game as an incredibly full, deeply immersive experience. The price point reflects the type of experience that fans can expect when it comes to playing this particular game. He did add, this isn't a price point that we'll necessarily have on all our titles. It's actually a fairly common pricing model either here or in Europe or other parts of the world where the pricing may vary depending on the game itself. For their biggest games, I'm seeing for Nintendo will probably be $70 going forward, whether it's future big Zelda games or 3D Mario games or even maybe Mario Kart 9 or Smash Brothers, whatever it'll be called, you know. Also, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom does come out for the Switch on May 12th. Just under 2 months away for you Zelda fans out there. Let's see. An Xbox has confirmed it will not be on the E3 2023 show floor, but they will be hosting its annual Xbox Games Showcase and Starfield Direct right after the showcase on June 11th, which is the same time as E3 will be held this year. So they'll still be doing the usual main showcase, but they won't be on the show floor for E3 this year. And also Nintendo has confirmed they won't be there. Ubisoft has said they will be there. No word from Sony, but Sony hasn't attended E3 since either like 2018 or 2019 was the last time they went to E3. Square Enix had mentioned that Forspoken, the launch sales were lackluster. Reviews of Forspoken, which was released on January 24th, 2023, has been challenging, said Square Enix president. However, the game has also received positive feedback on its action features, including its parkour and combat capabilities, so it has yielded results that will lead to improvement of our development capabilities of games in the future. That said, its sales have been lackluster, and while the performance of new titles with February and March release dates will be the ultimate determinant, we see considerable downside risk for our fiscal year 2023 quarter 3 earnings. So yeah, the game came out, sales have been a bit lackluster, but looking at the software charts that are released, whether they release actual numbers or not, like Famitsu in Japan, you get actual sales figures, or other charts which just have the top 10. Generally speaking, you haven't seen Forspoken. Didn't debut in first place. It debuted much further down. But the game is also a PS5 console exclusive. I think, is it on PC? I'm not totally sure. It's either on PC now or will be on PC soon. So yeah, Forspoken sales have been lackluster for Square Enix. But I'm sure Final Fantasy 16, when that comes out later this year, will more than make up for it. Is my guess. I could be wrong. Let's take a quick look at the latest VGChartz estimates. Over the last week, we have released the Japan estimates as well as our Europe estimates for February. The Americas estimates won't be posted until the 29th or 30th of March because the monthly report, which provides more data, was delayed and is not coming out until the 29th, I believe, is the date. Which, the reason we're going to this monthly, reporting on the stuff monthly, is waiting for the more data to come in, as well as the reports that come out once a month. So that also means Global will be posted a day or two after the Americas will be posted as well. So, yeah, in Japan, for February, PS5, #1, stock has greatly improved for the PlayStation 5 with 367,000 units sold. 221,000 Switch units sold and just under 26,000 Series X and S consoles sold, and 5,300 PS4s were sold in Japan. And then in Europe, again, these are our estimates here. We've got across Europe, 426,000 PS5s were sold across Europe, up from about 400,000 in January. And so far, looking like March will be even better, even bigger of a month than February. Potentially upwards of 500,000 sold in just Europe alone. Let's see. And also 195,000 Switches sold in Europe, 117,000 Series X and S, and 6,200 PS4s were sold in Europe. So yeah, sales were up a bit, but it wasn't that much. There was a report that showed that sales of PS5 were up 5-fold compared to February 2022. However, PS5 was severely supply constrained in Q1 of last year. So even a 5-fold increase, while sales are really good, it's not as insane as it could be if sales were much stronger a year ago, saying a 5-fold increase. But yeah, 426,000 in Europe and 367,000 in Japan. And we'll see how America's sales end up being. But it's looking like a very strong month for PS5. Also in the Americas, which means sales in February should be much higher, should be a decent amount higher than they were in January. Potentially 1.5 million plus PS5 sold in one single non-holiday month. A holiday month, yeah, that's fine. But in a non-holiday month, which is by far really crazy sales, to say the least. So Sony has been able to get stock out there. Shortages appear to be over. There's been stock in stores, not selling out immediately. So yeah, also let's take a quick look at my breakdown of the Europe sales specifically. Again, yeah, PS5 sales topped 10 million in Europe, and the sales jumped 338%, or a bit over 4, not quite 4.5-fold increase. When I mention that 5-fold increase, that is for some European markets, but does not include the UK, which is a little over 300% increase year over year. And then, obviously, places like Russia, Ukraine, and some Eastern European countries are not going to be up that much because, well, you know why. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and then Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo all pulled out of selling their consoles, I believe, in Russia. So sales there, compared to last year, will be 0. And then, obviously, Ukraine sales are probably very low, and maybe even some other neighboring countries as well. Not as much. But the biggest market for gaming in Europe is the UK, followed by Germany and then France. Although it depends on the video game maker, because Nintendo, I think France is actually the #1 market in Europe. But generally speaking, the overall market, it's UK, Germany, France, and then you got Spain and Italy, a bit below that, and then like other parts of Europe below that. But yeah, PS5 best-selling console, 426,000 units sold to bring its Europe sales to over 10 million, 10.26 million units estimated sold. Switch sold an estimated 195,000 to bring its lifetime sales in Europe to 31.2 million. Series X and S sold 117,000 to bring its lifetime estimates to 5.6 million. And the PS4 sold an estimated 6,200 to bring its lifetime Europe sales to 45.8 million. Is there enough to get to 46 million? Maybe. We'll see. I think there's a good chance. So yeah, generation over generation, PS5 sales compared to the same month for the PS4 in 2016 are up by over 59,000. So yeah, the PS5 is starting to close the gap with the PS4. I mean, probably won't close the gap until either the end of this year at the earliest, or probably until sometime in 2024 before it closes that gap between the PS5 and PS4. Series X and S sales are up by over nearly 19,000 units compared to the same month for the Xbox One. Year-over-year sales, PS5 sales are up 328,000 or 338%. Switch sales are down 69,000 or about 26% year on year, which considering how old the Switch is, not really a surprise. And Series X and S sales are up by 13,800 units, or about 13.4% year over year. PS4 sales are down 1,100 or down by 15.5%. Month-on-month sales, PS5 sales are up by over 18,000 units. Switch sales are down by nearly 134,000 units. It's a big drop-off. And Series X and S sales are down by over 13,000 units. 2023 year-to-date in Europe sales specifically, PS5 has sold 830,000 units in Europe, 530,000 for the Switch, and 220,000 for the Series X and S. And again, if you want to check these out, go to VGChartz, check out the articles on the latest estimates. And again, the Americas and worldwide we posted at the end of the month, probably the 29th or 30th for the Americas, and then a day or two after that for the worldwide charts. And now going to Activision Blizzard stuff. We'll start with stuff from the last couple days. Microsoft has signed a 10-year agreement with cloud streaming service Boosteroid to release Xbox games on PC to their platform. This will include Activision Blizzard games on PC if the acquisition is approved. And if you don't know, Boosteroid, it is based in Ukraine and is the largest independent cloud streaming gaming provider with over 4 million users worldwide. So Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer said, "We believe in the power of games to bring people together. That's why Xbox is committed to give everyone more ways to play their favorite games across devices. Bringing Xbox PC games to Boosteroid," I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, members, including Activision Blizzard titles such as Call of Duty once the deal closes, is yet another step in realizing that vision. Boosteroid CEO Ivan, you know what? I'm not even going to attempt to butcher his name, so I'm going to stop right there. Boosteroid shares Microsoft's vision of bringing games to as many people, places, and platforms as possible. It has been long our goal to provide gamers with an opportunity to enjoy their favorite titles on any device close at hand. And the Boosteroid's cloud streaming service, it is available in the US, UK, France, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine, and Serbia at the moment. And I'm sure plans to release in other countries in the future. Microsoft has also signed a 10-year deal with Ubitus. I'll admit I had never heard of them. Boosteroid, I have heard in passing, but I don't know much about them. Ubitus, I have never heard of myself. Microsoft, for the second time this week, announced it has signed a deal to bring Xbox games on PC to a cloud streaming service. This includes Activision Blizzard games on PC, if the deal is approved, again. This deal is with Taiwan-based cloud gaming company Ubitus. I'm not really sure. But anyway, its technology has been used to bring several games to the Switch and elsewhere. Switch games that uses their cloud technology includes Control, Resident Evil Village, Guardians of the Galaxy, Hitman 3, and several others. So it's potential to get Call of Duty to work on the Switch. Maybe this is what they'll be using in the future. We'll maybe find out if the deal is approved. Yeah, Microsoft and them have... so yeah, this is from Microsoft CEO Phil Spencer. Microsoft Gaming CEO specifically, not just Microsoft CEO. That would be Satya Nadella. Oh yeah, Microsoft and Ubitus. A leading cloud gaming provider has signed a 10-year partnership to stream Xbox PC games, as well as Activision Blizzard titles after Activision closes. Our commitment is to give more players more choice. Again, Microsoft also has signed a 10-year deal with NVIDIA to bring Xbox games on PC to their GeForce Now service, including Activision Blizzard games, if that deal is approved. And they've also entered a 10-year commitment with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty games to Nintendo platforms, if the deal is approved. More stuff from Activision Blizzard from earlier today. FTC, in its own document, wants more information on Microsoft's 10-year deals with Nintendo and NVIDIA, as well as more details on Microsoft's exclusivity plans with ZeniMax Games. So FTC, in their document, Microsoft has recently sought to enter into agreements regarding making Activision content available on certain third-party services. Despite clearly intending to use these agreements in its defense, Microsoft has refused to produce underlying internal documents related to these arguments or communications with third parties other than NVIDIA, Nintendo, and Sony. This would come out before Microsoft, I think, announced the Boosteroid and Ubitus partnerships. Microsoft should not be permitted to introduce or rely on these agreements without producing the required underlying discovery. So they're requesting more details and paperwork on the deals that Microsoft has in place with NVIDIA and Nintendo. I'm sure the other ones they've just have signed and announced. FTC is requesting to get all documents related to exclusivity of ZeniMax, as well as proposed plans for exclusivity related to the Activision Blizzard acquisition. So the FTC stated it requests all documents related to exclusivity of content Microsoft acquired from ZeniMax and exclusivity of content Microsoft proposes to acquire from Activision. In addition to post-complaint documents, Microsoft refuses to produce. Complaint counsel does not have a complete set of relevant documents from the time period covered by the investigation. So they're asking for more documents. And Microsoft, FTC also requested documents include Microsoft's next-generation gaming ecosystem. Now, being FTC, does that mean the next-gen Xbox, or does that mean just the current Xbox was considered next-gen? I don't know. Not totally sure. But yeah, FTC is requesting more documents. Maybe we'll get some more information out there with this documents. You know what? I'm in favor of the video game industry being more open, being less secretive, because, man, it'd be nice to get more data available out there, for sure. So yeah, more stuff from this deal. Sony, this was posted 5 days ago. Sony has released a statement to games industry following the UK regulators. Recently published report, which we'll go over some of that stuff soon, on Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition that contained PlayStation's response that had multiple redactions. So Sony says Microsoft's offer for future Call of Duty releases on PlayStation was redacted and claims the offer would irreparably harm competition in the video game industry, as well as hurt innovation. So Sony's statement said, redacted versions of the observations filed by PlayStation and Microsoft on the CMA's remedies notice were made public this week. Information regarding the terms of an offer made by Microsoft to provide future Call of Duty releases on PlayStation was redacted at the request of Microsoft, not PlayStation. We believe the current offer will irreparably harm competition and innovation in the industry. We don't know exactly what the offer is. It probably is similar to the one that they offered Nintendo. Is basically guarantee Call of Duty on PlayStation platforms for the next 10 years. So probably PlayStation 5, PlayStation 6. With day and date on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 6 as it releases, same day as it releases on Xbox consoles, I guess PC, and obviously now Nintendo platforms, if the deal is approved. As well as having all the exact same content parity, no like differences in the games, no exclusive content to the Xbox version where content is missing on PlayStation. That seems to be what they're looking at. But Sony does claim that the offer will irreparably harm competition and innovation in the gaming industry. Which we'll see. Which I guess, yeah, if it gives Microsoft too much of an upper hand, but Microsoft keeps saying they want to keep Call of Duty games multi-platform. Even though, yes, obviously the main thing was ZeniMax. They have kept already released games on all platforms. They've kept, obviously, Minecraft on all platforms. Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76. Skyrim Anniversary was released on PlayStation, I believe, as well. But obviously, they have made Starfield an Xbox exclusive, Redfall an Xbox exclusive. Hi-Fi Rush, which came out in January, was announced and released in January, Xbox exclusive. I mean, console exclusive. They are on PC. Moving on to some other stuff from last week. The Activision Blizzard stuff. We're still on this. So, yeah. Activision claims that Microsoft's proposal of a 10-year legally binding deal to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation is not enough to protect PlayStation's access to the Call of Duty franchise. In the intervening period, Microsoft has not shown any real commitment to reaching a negotiated outcome, reads Sony's response. They have dragged their feet, engaged only when they sense the regulatory outlook darkening, and favored negotiating with the media over engaging PlayStation. Sony added that the proposal fails to provide adequate protection for PlayStation access to Call of Duty or for competition. Instead, it reveals Microsoft's lack of commitment to ensuring full and equal access to Call of Duty confirms the risk of a behavioral remedy outlined in the guidelines and reinforces PlayStation's belief that Microsoft intends to use Call of Duty strategically to dominate the gaming sector. Sony claims that Microsoft's proposal does not offer a commitment to parity that is legally enforceable. Microsoft's proposal does not offer a clear commitment to parity that is legally hard-edged and enforceable, despite its repeated public utterances to the contrary. Under its proposal, Microsoft is obliged to use redacted parity between PlayStation and Xbox and their respective Microsoft Game Studio services. This is a vague and weak commitment that does not give PlayStation the assurance that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation on terms that would maintain PlayStation's competitiveness. Sony added Microsoft's proposal allows too wide a scope for Microsoft to deviate from its weak commitment on parity. Sony claims that Microsoft would not be incentivized to invest in the performance of Call of Duty on PlayStation, as a weakened PlayStation would provoke switching to Xbox, claiming that Call of Duty players on PlayStation, some of them will be switching to Xbox. And speaking of which, Sony claims Microsoft could release Call of Duty on PlayStation with bugs to try to convince people to switch to Xbox version, which has less bugs. So yeah, Sony claims Microsoft has multiple ways it could withhold or degrade access, which would be extremely difficult to monitor and police. If Microsoft were to fail to comply with behavioral remedies, Sony says Microsoft would only risk paying a fine. If Microsoft failed to comply with the commitment, it would likely only risk paying a fine, possibly many years later. But rivals' access to Call of Duty would be immediately foreclosed, irreparably damaging their ability to compete and ultimately harming consumers. Sony claims one way Microsoft could circumvent its obligations to release Call of Duty on PlayStation is to make Call of Duty games buggy on PlayStation consoles. This is what Sony PlayStation is claiming that Microsoft could potentially do, which to me seems a little far-fetched. But anyways, there's your ex statement. Swiftly detecting any diversions from and ensuring compliance with a commitment as to technical or graphical quality would be challenging. For example, Microsoft might release a PlayStation version of Call of Duty where bugs and errors emerge only on the game's final level or after later updates. If bugs are illegal now, then my job is in jeopardy. Well, everything has bugs. I think the main thing that they're stating is that they'll intentionally leave bugs in the PlayStation version that they'll only be fixing on the Xbox version is kind of how I'm reading this. Even if such degradations could be swiftly detected, any remedy would likely come too late, by which time the gaming community would have lost confidence in PlayStation as a go-to venue to play Call of Duty. Indeed, as Modern Warfare 2 attests, Call of Duty is most often purchased in just the first few weeks of release. If it became known that the game's performance on PlayStation was worse than on Xbox, Call of Duty gamers could decide to switch to Xbox for fear of playing their favorite games at a second-class or less competitive venue. Sony added that Microsoft would be incentivized to prioritize the Xbox version of Call of Duty games. Mind you, Sony does have a deal with Activision Blizzard that has some content exclusive for the PlayStation version of Call of Duty, as well as marketing rights for Call of Duty, which Microsoft did have in place during the Xbox 360 days, but then during the PS4, Microsoft did let that lapse, and Sony picked it up. But yeah, Sony also stated even if Microsoft operated in good faith, it would be incentivized to support and prioritize development of the Xbox version of the game, such as by using its best engineers and more of its resources. Yeah, I guess that part does make sense. The Xbox version will be the lead platform going forward. We would make the most sense, kind of. But yeah, there will be no practical way for the CMA to monitor how Microsoft chooses to allocate its resources and the quantity of engineers it devotes to the PlayStation version of Call of Duty to ensure that PlayStation will be treated fairly and equally. This one is a report. This is not 100% confirmed that this was said. Activision Blizzard EVP Corporate Affairs and CCO Lulu Chang went to Twitter and pretty much said Sony has no interest in working out a Call of Duty deal with Microsoft at all, or with Activision. Basically saying that Jim Ryan, PlayStation CEO and president, said behind closed doors, reportedly, this is not confirmed, this is all reportedly, said, I don't want a new Call of Duty deal, said Jim Ryan. I just want to block your merger, which, yeah, we know Sony is trying to do everything to block its merger, which, you know what? I get it. I get why Sony is the one trying to block its merger, because it's going to hurt their gaming, their position in the gaming console business, as it'll help Xbox more, and obviously will bring some sales away from PlayStation to Xbox. But having said that, PlayStation has been fairly dominant for most of its life in the console market. I mean, other than with the PS3 and 360, with sales being pretty much on par, within a few million of each other. PS4 greatly outsold the Xbox One more than 2-1. The PS2 compared to the original Xbox was it like 6-1, 7-1, something like that. But obviously Sony sells other first-party games, and Microsoft does plan to keep Call of Duty multi-platform. But obviously, I completely understand Sony trying to do everything it can to block the deal. It makes sense that they're going to try to do that. They don't, they understand it will harm their business going forward. If this deal is allowed to be approved. Because even if everything remains the same, Call of Duty remains the exact same on PlayStation, on Xbox, Call of Duty will be coming to Game Pass. And then some people will be like, oh, Microsoft now owns Activision Blizzard. We'll swap to Xbox type of deal. I don't know how many would. I mean, Minecraft is still multi-platform, and, I think the biggest platform for Minecraft is probably either... I would say, I'm not actually sure which was the biggest, but Xbox is probably one of the smallest platforms for Minecraft. I don't know if PC would be the biggest, but I think Switch is probably pretty big for Minecraft, as well as PlayStation. But anyways, so yeah, reportedly, Jim Ryan said he does not want a Call of Duty deal. He'll, sound like he won't sign a Call of Duty deal with Microsoft. He just wants to block the merger. Which explains why Microsoft has said they have offered a deal with Sony, but Sony hasn't signed it. As I said, this is getting crazy at this point. Yes, more stuff with this. A few more articles, and we'll call it here a day for the Game News Roundup. Microsoft says it has given Sony the option to add Call of Duty games to its PlayStation Plus subscription service on day one. Microsoft intends to put future Call of Duty games on Xbox Game Pass on day one, and it will also let Sony do the same for its own service. Microsoft states its 10-year offer to Sony will provide parity on release date, content, features, upgrades, quality, and playability with the Xbox platform on the PlayStation 5, PS4, and any successor PlayStation console. Any COD game and a Microsoft multi-game subscription is eligible for inclusion in Sony's multi-game subscription service at the same time and for the same duration, said Microsoft. However, one thing we don't know is how much. How much does Sony have to pay Microsoft in order to get Call of Duty games available on PlayStation Plus service day one? That is the biggest thing we don't know. If it's for... I say, would it be for nothing? Probably not. It'd be for some fee. For sure. So who knows? How many tens of millions, hundreds of millions? I don't know. Per Call of Duty game. I'm guessing it won't be free. It's just a guess. But Microsoft has let the offer to put the Call of Duty games on PlayStation Plus day one. And I'm sure, again, for some type of fee, to say the least. And Microsoft apparently also claimed it can get Call of Duty to run natively on the Nintendo Switch. Not a cloud version. They can downgrade Call of Duty enough to get it to run on the Switch. I don't know how the visuals will have to be. I guess the Switch is 720p. I think it's 720p the screen. But they're not downgrading to get it to run even at 30 FPS is 720p. But yeah, Microsoft states that Call of Duty Warzone... Hold on. In a newly published report by the UK regulators, Microsoft claims it will be able to get Call of Duty running on the Switch natively. Switch is more than capable. People just dev like trash these days. Is it though? I guess enough downgrading. You think about PCs and stuff. Yeah, Microsoft states that Call of Duty Warzone supports PC hardware with GPU cards that were released as far back as 2015, and there is no reason it couldn't be optimized for the Nintendo Switch. The Activision development team has a long history of optimizing games performance for available hardware capabilities. Microsoft says the game engine that powers Warzone is mature and has been optimized to run on a wide range of hardware devices, ranging from the Xbox One. Released in, I don't know why it says 2015, it definitely was 2013, up to the Xbox Series X and S, and it can be altered to run on the Nintendo Switch. And yeah, I noted a strange error that has Xbox released in 2013, not in 2015. Hey, Goose, what's up? You see the demos people got running on the Amiga? That's true. I guess Witcher 3 runs on the Switch? Doom Eternal runs on the Switch? So yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah, Apex Legends. Yeah, Doom Eternal. Fortnite, Crysis 3. So I guess with enough work, they could get Call of Duty to release on the Switch. And by the way, the last Call of Duty released on a Nintendo platform was Call of Duty Ghosts. 2013 on the Wii U. It's been a decade, almost a decade at this point, since we've had a Call of Duty game on a Nintendo platform. So we'll see. I guess, you know what? Programming was once an art once. Yeah, well, now it's a lot of brute forcing. I mean, think about Call of Duty games are like hundreds of gigabytes at this point. Actually, I think the hardest part to get Call of Duty to run on the Switch is the amount of space required. Because I think the SSD cards, those custom SSD cards that the Switch uses, I think it's either 32 or 64 gigs are the biggest size available for the cartridges that they use. Or the SD cards, whatever they're called. That might be the hardest part, is to get it to fit on it. I mean, we'll see. I mean, Microsoft is willing to put the money, and they have a legally binding deal with Nintendo now to release Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms. I'm sure there'll definitely be no issues with the Nintendo Switch 2, the Switch successor. Also, how are you doing, Goose? Welcome to the stream. We're just wrapping up the Game News Roundup. One last thing. Microsoft says it won't increase the price of Xbox Game Pass once the Activision deal is approved. Game Pass prices will not increase as a result of the merger, and certainly will not increase to a point that offsets the substantial benefits of Activision titles coming to Xbox Game Pass on a day-and-day basis, said Microsoft. This is especially so given Xbox Game Pass will continue to be restrained by B2P. I thought I knew what that stood for, and I'm realizing I say free to play, buy to play, something or others. Yeah, Microsoft added it did not raise the price of Game Pass once it added games from Bethesda following the acquisition. Parent company, ZeniMax Media. The integration of Activision and Microsoft will result in a classic elimination of double marginalization effect, because Microsoft will be able to acquire these games at opportunity costs and will have incentives to distribute them more broadly and increase the output of Game Pass related relative to its counterfactual level. In order to increase output, Microsoft will need to offer Game Pass at a lower quality adjusted price. This is exactly what Microsoft has done when it has added content to Game Pass in the past with, for example, ZeniMax transaction, resulting in additional content but no increase in Game Pass subscription prices. This is especially so given that Game Pass users are price sensitive, and an increase in the price of Game Pass would affect all users, including those that do not value or play COD. Game Pass subscribers can cancel at any time after a month of play, as COD titles are only released once a year. Any impact would be short-lived, as gamers who exhaust their enthusiasm for the new version of COD within a few months will churn because of the higher price. As such, any price increase would be counterproductive, as it would increase subscriber churn rates. This entirely at odds with the provisional findings assessment of Microsoft's rationale for the merger of trying to grow Game Pass with more users. So, and another thing they've mentioned, even though a lot of people don't pay attention to it, is Microsoft is trying to grow their mobile market. You get Call of Duty Warzone. It also includes King, Candy Crush creators, developers, as well as some other. I think there's Diablo Immortal. I think is the Diablo mobile game. So they're trying to grow their mobile presence, they're trying to grow Game Pass and whatnot. So anyways, that's going to do it for today's Game News Roundup. If you enjoyed it, as always, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, and leave any comments below if you have anything else to add. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time for some more Game News Roundup.